Taking the church to the streets, homie.
Hey, yo, what's going on, my Bible theorists, all my homies, the Reformados, where you at, man? Hey, man, it's been a long time since I did a solo live interview, not interview, but like a solo live stream. And so I just thought I'd come on real quick to do a solo live. And man, this week has been a long week for me, man. Physical, emotional, spiritual, in all sense of the terms. As a father, and I know there are many people out there right now that are actually dealing with the same stuff, the same stress, the same anxieties, the same fears and doubts and struggles and temptations and battles. And I felt moved at the end of today. Basically, when I got out of work, I was moved by the Spirit, like compelled to come on here, and we need to pray. There's chaos outside. There's disorder outside. The the clouds of doom and gloom are outside again, and they come around every so often. So I don't want to be like an alarmist or a sensationalist. I do want to acknowledge there's been times in church history that have been darker, that have been worse than we are right now at this very moment in world history, redemptive history, and in particularly United States history. So I do want to point that out. And you know, let me see here. Can you guys hear me all right? I'm just on here checking my audio. Anyways, I found a quote. Um, it was a D.A. Carson quote. He says, prayer is the acid test of devotion. Wow. The acid test of devotion. You know, I feel bad for myself a little bit because I don't pray enough. I don't pray enough. And I know there's a lot of people on here who struggle with the same issues. Reform, Baptist reform, non denominational, wherever you at. I know that many of us simply do not pray enough like we should. We are getting burned with acid, figuratively speaking, theologically speaking, philosophically speaking. I want to put that out there. And that shows our devotion. That shows our devotion. So that's why I want to come on here and offer a time of prayer in the time of chaos. I'm going to go ahead and quote a couple Bible verses. John 14:27. It says this: Peace I leave with you. May peace I give you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. That's Jesus' words. One of his final words before he ascended into heaven. John 14:27. Jesus says, I give you peace. Peace. But not like the world gives you peace. A peace. And who will be with you. You know, a peace. And I think we need that Jesus peace. We need some of that. I know I do. I felt it heavy today. Today was like, oh, I can't carry this. I'm sorry. I've been carrying things this whole week, this past 2 months. It's been intensifying and intensifying. A monkey on my back. And I know you got monkeys on your back, spiritually speaking here. And when things like that happen, I feel like I need to go to the word. I need to put all the stuff aside and just run to the word for myself. Because I'm like, man, I need a drink. I need to eat. I need rest. I need this peace. I cannot find peace. It is very true that the world gives you peace. And in a weird way, you could find peace. But it's not like the peace that Jesus gives you. It's a temporary peace. Sometimes it's synthetic. Sometimes it's compromising. Sometimes it's lacking the gospel. Sometimes it's not even biblical peace. The peace of the world is not lasting, is not assuring, is none of that. But there is a peace in the world that the world offers. And the world right now cannot even have peace amongst themselves. And I'm here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about that we need this peace that comes from Jesus, that could be only found in him, that's assuring, that's everlasting, that is comforting, that is 100% bulletproof, right? To use an example. So let me go ahead and I wanted to talk about a couple things I want to pray for. But before we begin, let's go ahead and I'm gonna ask you, what are your prayer requests? I know you have prayer requests. Now, list them below in the comment section. Tell me, what are your prayer requests? How can I pray for you? Because I feel heavily convicted. I feel pushed this way by the Spirit to talk about this. I feel like we should be praying more rather than lacking peace. The reason why we lack peace is because we don't pray more, right? What are your prayer requests? Go ahead and let me know in the comments below. So the top thing in the news, and let me tell you something real quick that you may not know about me. I follow the news religiously. I look at every single source from all angles. I used to have this reporter job, and that's where I learned it from. And ever since then, I cannot undo that in my behavior, in my mannerisms. And every year, I take a 2, maybe 3 month break at the end of the year, from November all the way to February. I take a break. I don't read any news, and it's hard because I'm like, but I have to do it mentally. And I picked it up earlier this year again. After the break, I slowly get into it. And I started like late January, and then I started to get into it, and boom, every week since late January has been getting intense, intense, intense. And what's going on in the world today? And I've been following it. And no, I don't read the newspaper. Let me make another disclosure. I don't read the newspaper and then I read my Bible and then I use the newspaper as a hermeneutic to judge my Bible. I don't do that. I look at the world and I was like, man, the days are evil. This is a fallen world. I get reminded of the depravity of man, and I need to pray. We need to pray right now. This is a prayer time for the chaos. And the number one thing that's on people's minds right now in the news is this school shooting, what happened in Nashville. Listen, this is not the first time that a school shooting has happened. Obviously, the cat's out of the bag. There's been shootings happening a long time now, over 20 years plus, right? Just tragedy after tragedy. It's something. When kids are the victims of crimes like this, it hits differently. It's harder to speak about, and I don't care if it's this Nashville one or the other one where the other kids. When any kid dies in this way, it's hard, and especially when it comes to in the church, that's like another difficulty. And but anyways, this is what people are talking about right now: school shootings, Nashville, the shootings in Nashville, the 6 Christians that perished, that died. I think should concern us all. You might say, "Well, I'm too busy. I got other things to care. I got to care about. I got rent. I got to work 80 hours." I get it. Like I work a lot of hours too. I got 5 kids too. I got my own problems too. I got my own mortgage. I'm with you. I get it. But listen, we know what Nashville should say to us, all of us, Christians, Reform, Baptist, non-denominational, doesn't matter. It should tell us to stop and pray. And there's hardcore attitudes out there that are saying prayer is not enough. There's hardcore attitudes out there that are interrupting this process of grieving, this process of hurting, and they're interrupting us with their rudeness and alienness of the situation, and they're not helping at all. And they're saying prayer is not enough. How dare you pray? Keep your prayers to yourself. It's very hateful. It's very demonic and demeaning and not helpful in any of these shootings. Okay. And there's a big crowd out there like that. But I'm talking to you, Christian. I'm talking to us. Us. We need to pray. We need to be intentional to seek this peace that Jesus tells us that the peace I give you is not like the peace in the world. We need to do that right now. We need to pray for the families. And I know you heard this. You probably got an email from me, Pastor. I got 20 emails from 20 different pastors this past week of of um of their congregations that are grieving, that are in many, like two of them is in Colorado, one of them in New Mexico, half of them is in Texas. I don't know why I know a lot of pastors in Texas. Shouts out to all my pastors in Texas, by the way. But and some other parts in California, and I'm like, you could just tell from the OPC pastors that I got messages from this week, from the CPC pastors. I'm talking about Presbyterians in here. And, I think I got a couple pastors who were Baptist, one guy. So, but the same thing, grieving, hurting, chaos is happening in these streets of Nashville. And what happened should concern us. We should pray for the families that are impacted. Losing any kid is enough. Okay, it is tragic. I've never, to tell you the truth, I never lost a kid, so I cannot really tell you. I cannot sit here and lie to you and tell you I understand how that feels, because I'll be lying to you. So I don't. So with that being said, I can only fabricate in my mind the pain. I can only fabricate in my mind the the missing, the empty hole, all of a sudden, that these families are now given to, waking up the next day and not having those people next to you. I can only fabricate what that must feel like right now. And everybody in the Christian world in the United States has been given a wake up call right now. And it came through the state of Tennessee, unfortunately, and it went through Nashville. And I'm so glad for the law enforcement that came and acted quickly, and no one else was hurt. Amen, Heidi. Amen. I want to homeschool them. As a single parent, I worry about violence and drug use in my neighborhood. Amen. We should be. But what should we seek? Where are we running to? We should run to Jesus. Jesus says, I give you peace. Not like the world gives you peace, but I give you peace. Right? So Tennessee is everywhere right now when it comes to the school shooting. And I saw a video earlier today on my Twitter feed. By the way, if you don't follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at the Chicano Knox, on Instagram, Facebook. That'd be great. But anyways, I saw a Twitter feed from the White House press secretary, and she says something about, we're grieving for the victims of the transgender movement, and we're with them. They're under attack. Where's the evidence? Where's the statistics? I don't see it. I cannot see that. You know what I mean? And I felt that as a slap to the face to all the families out there that are hurting, to all the congregants out there that are hurting. That was a slap to the face. She should have not said that. But that's just an indication of where the other side and what those people are thinking about right now. And I think that's bad. But we need to deal with this. We need the peace of Jesus. We need to pray that schools would reform. Yes, solutions need to be brought to the table. Schools need to reform. And I know there's people out there saying that, well, we don't want them to look like prisons. Well, do you want dead kids? You better protect your kids. Many mothers protect their kids, by the way. And when you send them off to these schools, Christian schools, by the way, public schools, by the way, and they can't protect them, how do you think that makes mothers feel? I'm just letting you know that we need to pray in this time of chaos. So yes, we need to pray for the churches out there, for Tennessee. That will be a wake up call for the Tennessee church, and especially the PCA in Tennessee. They need to wake up. They need to wake up, and they need to all the deacons. I pray that the deacons in Tennessee and the PCA there would gather around this family to support them. I pray for the elders in the PCA that are in Nashville, that know these families, that they will gather around these families to counsel them, to pastor them, to lead them to peace in Jesus. And I pray for these police officers that I'm very thankful that they came to put an end to this. But I pray that they'll take an urgent step forward in saying we need to do something about our schools and protect them more often, and not leave them so vacant. So vacant. Did you notice in the body cams of these officers when they were in there? I'm not sure if you saw that, but all the school was empty. I get it. Everybody evacuated. But even before then, it was like mostly empty. And it was just um, like there was no other security guards. There was no other people in there. What's going on? So we need to pray for these school shootings. The people say, well, the problems is the guns. Maybe. Is it really? What about the people who use the guns? What about them? Well, they have access to them. How did they get access to them? Let's have this conversation logically, faithfully. Let's have this conversation at a higher level. Everybody should be having this conversation. Nobody should be afraid of that. And I also pray for the conversation to take place in a faithful biblical way. We need to pray for the time of chaos. Let me read you another quote. Right here is by John Bunyan. I found this quote and it says, you can do more. Hold on, let me see. You can do more than pray after you have prayed, but you cannot do more than pray until you have prayed. Pray often for prayer. For prayer is a shield to the soul, a sacrifice to God, and a scourge to Satan. Wow. So what John Bunyan is saying in that quote is that we need to do more than pray. Prayer is sometimes for Christians is very cliche, and that's true. Sometimes Christians look at prayer or they approach, or maybe they have a relationship with prayer. And I can say this for myself, where I approach the prayer like indifferent, like it's like, oh Lord, blah blah blah, And then sometimes Christians pray. Um, I already prayed today, once, twice. I'm like, John Bunyan just said it's not enough. You could do more than pray. So that quote is an amazing quote. Let me read you another Bible passage right here. It says, God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. It takes self-control to pray. I need this. It takes love to pray. You need to love in order to pray. Pray for them. Pray for Nashville. You need to love Nashville. You need to love those kids. You need to love that church. Well, what do you mean by love? Care? Interest? Not indifferent? Like, you need to have a greater interest and a greater perspective to actually care. So love. Not a spirit of fear and not of, but of a spirit of power. That's what God has given us. So it's very easy to fall into a spirit of fear. And yes, it's true. A lot of people are dealing with this fear. We need to pray, but we also need to pray that we could resist giving in to the temptation of fear. Fear to like, oh, I don't want to step outside no more. Fear as I don't want to go to church no more. I didn't say be smart. We need to be smarter, actually. Um, Churches need to be smarter. These Christian schools need to be smarter, wiser, alert, urgent. Um, but they need to pray. We cannot give in to a spirit of fear, even if we give more precautions and exhortations to safety, which we should, but we shouldn't give it into a spirit of fear and panic. The next thing we should pray for that I'm burdened is burdening me at this point is the war in Ukraine. I cannot stop looking at maps. I've listened to map experts, satellite experts on YouTube and on Spyglass, if you know what that is. Reports are coming out that Ukraine is running out of men. How is that even possible? It happens if they're being killed. If you're getting killed and being destroyed, how is that sustainable for a war? You can't. And I was listening to a podcast earlier last week and this week about World War II and how the Germans were losing tons and tons of people, that at the very end, when the Germans had to protect Berlin, that Hitler enlisted the young people, the young kids, and the older people, like 65 years old, people who were retired, bro. And they got these people and he enlisted them to fight for the Nazis, for Germany, because the Nazis lost so many men. 30,000 here, 300,000 there, 400,000 there, 500,000 there. I'm like, you cannot, that's not sustainable. And more I find out that yes, the Russians lost a lot of people, a lot of soldiers, but think about the Ukrainian people here for a second. They lost a lot of people. A lot of people fled the country, so that's a loss. So how can you have a national draft if a bunch of people left? Okay, so that's number one. Number two, a bunch of your men are dying like a meat grinder. And everybody in the news media is starting to leak through, because in the whole beginning of last year was Ukraine is winning and the Russians are dumb, the Russians are stuck, it was a miscalculation. We're going to win this, like President Biden said, we're in it, we're going to fight for every inch, we're going to send them, but put that aside. But that's been a narrative, by the way. And then you're like, okay, why are they losing territory like on the daily? Why is Ukraine losing hundreds, hundreds per day, thousands per day? And sometimes the Russians lose hundreds and thousands per day too. So I want to say that to make that like, oh, okay, war is war. I get it, but we were told that the Ukrainians were actually like kind of winning. That's the persona. That's the narrative. And then all of a sudden it's leaking through that the number is actually greater, like 300,000 people dead in Ukraine. Are you kidding me? That's a devastating campaign. If you are Ukraine, that's a devastating campaign. Russia moved nuclear tactical missiles to Belarus. Hello? They moved nuclear power missiles, okay? And on the same day, they canceled a peace treaty with the United States, by the way. You don't that tells you something when you read the tea leaves. When you read the tea leaves, it tells you something that this is not just the Ukrainian war is not just about Ukrainian war no more. It feels like it's been going on for a long time. I get that. We're all kind of exhausted already. I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted about hearing Ukraine. I'm exhausted about hearing the war in Russia. I'm exhausted about the attitude that we have taken in our government. Like we won't talk with peace, and Putin, Putin is a boogeyman. I'm exhausted by that kind of attitudes. I'm exhausted by that. What do you mean we won't seek peace? Do you want to blow up the world? Is that what you want? Do you want to send in NATO troops, which includes American troops? No, but that's what they're trying to do. It is so bad that actually China, you could look this up, you could verify everything I'm saying. It's so bad that China had to fly out last week and sit down with Putin, the leader of Russia, and say, and he was saying, "Hey, I want to make money with the Europeans again. How can we make peace? Let's negotiate." The United States says, "How about no?" Like, wait, what? What? We worked with the communists in World War II, and we can't work with the non-communists in 2023. Russia is a non-communist country on paper, okay? And we won't work with them. They're non-communist. Hello. We allied with the Soviet. Think about this. We allied with the Soviet Union in World War II to defeat Nazi Germany. We hooked up with them. We gave them weapons. We provided for them. We worked out a deal. Everything. It wasn't pretty, but we did it. And then now in 2023, they're not Soviets. They're not Rush. They're not that no more. Okay. And we won't even talk to them. It's like, come on. So there's potential escalation here. That's what I'm trying to say. And I don't mean to be a sensationalist. I don't mean to be a warmonger, because that's exactly the things that I've been seeing here in the West. Warmongering by the GOP. Not everybody in the GOP, by the way, is pushing for war. There are some, like Rand Paul and others, pushing for peace and let's get out of Ukraine, man. But there's a majority in the GOP pushing, let's just send in a helicopter and blast Putin. It's like, no, let's not do that. Why would you say that? And everybody, most people in the Democratic Party is pushing for, let's just give them a blank check and support all of them. How is that sustainable for our economy, by the way? Peace in a time of chaos. We need prayer. We need to go back to prayer with these things. How can we pray for Ukraine? I just read in the New Horizons, it was a blog or a column on my Twitter feed from the Orthodox Presbyterian Church, from the OPC, and they gathered like a ton of food, bro, a ton of food, boxes and boxes of crates of food, and they shipped it to Ukraine as an act of love, as an act of mercy, as a gesture to say we are going to support, the kids in Ukraine, the orphanages, the churches that are hungry. Like, why isn't the United States doing that on a massive scale? Like, we should not send them weapons and escalate this. We should be like, listen, we're for peace. We don't, we don't want massive slaughter. So let's get you all out. I don't know. I'm not a politician here. Okay. All I'm saying is that this could escalate very quickly. Very quickly. They shot down a United States plane. This could escalate next month into like World War III easily. And guess what? Poland is in World War. Poland is ready to go. Poland is like, forget y'all. We're in World War III mode. We're gonna draft. Poland is drafting, getting all their tanks ready. Poland is ready to go. And if it wasn't for the United States being in Poland, Poland would have invaded Ukraine by now and fought the Russians. Okay, so we're the only ones holding Poland back. Germany and France is like, no, no, no. We need to pray for this situation. It's chaos. Hundreds of soldiers died today in the Battle of Bakhmut, which is a town under siege by the Russians. It's almost surrounded, and it could fall within the next few days and in the next couple weeks, right? Bakhmut is actually a town under siege, and it could fall any moment. And when Ukraine lose Bakhmut, it's almost like Germany losing Munich. Is that symbolic and that important? Okay, so we need to pray for this peace to come rapidly to the churches and to the people of Ukraine. First Peter chapter 5 says this: cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. Now, the people out there are saying, why should you pray? It's a waste of time. And I think I heard Joe Rogan or somebody from Joe Rogan's team or one of his interviewers a long time ago saying prayer is a waste of time. Prayer doesn't work. Prayer is an illusion and you're talking to nobody. Well, I hate to break it to you, Joe Rogan and anybody who's listening, and I say this with actually with respect. Prayer works. Prayer is real. God listens to our prayers, especially to the children, his children, to his church. God listens to the prayers of those who are actually humble enough to seek him. The beginning of all wisdom and knowledge is the fear of God, right? And many philosophers like C.S. Lewis has discovered this, by the way, where they were prideful and then all of a sudden they were humble. And then that's when they really began their journey to God. It's when they humbled themselves before God, repented of their sins, trusted in the Lord Jesus for salvation and nothing else. And when you do that, my listener, my friend, if you're listening to this in a days later, that's fine. But if you're listening to this, um, there's no salvation outside of Jesus. I hate to make it that simple, but it really is. Can it really be that simple? There's no peace outside of Jesus. There's no eternal life outside of Jesus. Can it really be that simple? Can it really be so black and white? Yes. Yes, it actually can be black and white. And I know how that sounds. It's a hard pill to swallow, especially when you are autonomous. And we've been indoctrinated with autonomy and independent theology and think for yourself, follow your heart, that type of stuff, especially with the transgender movement coming on. It's really hard to give that up and to swallow your pride and say, I need to trust in Jesus alone for salvation, for my salvation. And in him I find peace. So, yes, cast all your anxieties upon him. Oswald Chambers says, prayer does not fit us for the greater work. Prayer is the greater work. There's no other greater work on earth to do for a Christian than to pray. That's basically what he's saying. We need to pray great lengths to so God could do his will in Ukraine. The next thing we should pray for is riots. I don't know if you heard this, but in France, yo, what's going on in France? Everybody and their mamas are out there um burning stuff down. Like if you thought the BLM riots was crazy, man, what's going on in France is like on steroids. Even the firefighters are abandoning their jobs and joining the protesters to protest. And they're protesting over the government's decision to raise the pension retirement the pension beneficiary year of retirement from 62 to 64, I believe. And the only reason why they're doing that is because France has suffered massive financial losses during COVID, and their demographics is horrible in terms of the ratio of how many young people are actually alive today versus how many old people are retiring. It's a huge off balance. It's not sustainable economically. This is the only and plus what France just doing is a band-aid. It's a band-aid. No one's talking about that. But just step back and look what's going on in France. It's chaos. We need prayer in a time of chaos. And when you're feeling anxiety, when you're feeling like I can't carry this no more, like the way I felt today, the best thing I told myself, I sat in my chair and I just said, I need prayer. Man, I feel this chaos. France is in the state of chaos, state of emergency. Germany, Austria, and Amsterdam, they're all in the state of emergency chaos. Nashville today stormed the Capitol what people call an insurrection, what paralleled January 6th in terms of optics, what it looked like. It looked kind of similar. I'm not saying they're exactly the same. They're different, happen on different days, different situations, different reasonings, but very similar emotions, very similar charges, very similar polarization, by the way. And Nashville was invaded by leftists, protesters, people who invaded the Capitol building, broke in. All the people in the Capitol building had to evacuate. I don't know if anybody got hurt. That's how bad the reporting is right now on that. There's some reports, dozens of people got hurt. They're not naming names. Very unclear, unreliable sources. You have to wait a couple days for this to find out the real facts, as the facts continue to come out, by the way. So riots in Nashville from the so-called anti-gun lobbyists type people, right? So that happened today. A huge riot is coming to Washington, D.C. This weekend. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get banned. But it is a huge response for what's been going on. And it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I tell you that from a marketing perspective, it doesn't look good. And what's going on in Tennessee is just the beginning. I'm going to tell you what I told a friend. Remember in the movie Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, Part 2 with Christian Bale? The Joker is beating up Batman and he has him pinned down, I think. Remember? And he's looking over the Gotham Pier and he says, and here we go. Remember that part? Tonight. And here we go. And I don't say that in a joking way. I say that with as a great analogy that fit this thing. I keep telling my friends, I'm watching a Batman movie. I've been watching the news closely, religiously, like a hobby. It's part of my nature ever since I did that one job a long time ago. I picked it up. I can't put it down. It's just they trained me how to do it, and it just flexes like a muscle. I'm sorry. And I know not everybody cares, but guess what? I care. We all should care, by the way. But I do that every day. And I tell my friends, it's like I'm watching a Batman movie where Batman is fight. Like the only question I have at this point is like, is this the part where Batman gets his back broke? Something tragic happens to the hero, right? Or is this where he just fights everybody and then like it's chaos and then at the end he kind of wins, right? He pulls out a victory. So I don't know yet. I don't know what kind of movie this is. But I do know that Jesus gives you peace. I do know that in 2 Thessalonians 3:16, it says, now may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times in every way. In every way, the Lord be with you all. Colossians 3:15, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body. Here's an exhortation, and be thankful. I like that little subtleness. Man, Jonathan Edwards once said, I was almost constantly in prayer wherever I was. Prayer seemed to be natural to me, Jonathan Edwards says, as the breath by which the inward burnings of my heart had vent. So he's expressing the discipline that he had in prayer. Prayer came natural to him. Everywhere he went, prayer. Grocery store, prayer. Driving in the car instead of bumping music. Nothing wrong with bumping music. I do it a lot. But maybe instead of doing that, I should be like, prayer. We need prayer in a time of chaos. We need to pray for these riots. Another thing that's bringing chaos right now, that's on everybody's mind, is the breaking news that the New York jury has voted to indict former President Donald Trump. I feel for him. This man has survived the gauntlet many times. It is my assumption that he probably will survive this one. This one's a little different though, because no US president has ever been touched by the local law enforcement like this. Like, I get it. They pulled over George Bush one time for driving under the influence. I get that. But no one has ever been indicted a former president. So that's bringing chaos, and that is only adding fire, um, gasoline to the fire. This is not helpful. It. I hear part of my conservative friends saying it's a distraction. I hear another part of conservative friends who are dedicated to Trump. He's going to win because of this. He may win because of this. That is the freakiest part of all. I hear some smart people from the liberals who actually have brains who are saying the Democrats just want to take pictures because they want to use it for the campaign, for commercials, to write the history books. It's worth 1,000 words, right? And I see all the angles. But what I'm trying to say is that this comes in a very inconvenient time for us right now. It's like you're at the barbecue of your daughter's birthday and things are not going as well for your day, right? The barbecue went out, you had to go to the store, get some charcoal. Your daughter's in a bad mood, you're kind of short-tempered, you know what I mean? There's more people than expected, so you don't have enough food. You're dealing with these inconveniences throughout your day. You know what I'm talking about. And then all of a sudden, the water pipes in your house burst. And you're like, ah. And then all of a sudden, the tree breaks and falls down through the trampoline and breaks your kid's trampoline. No one gets hurt, right? Let's just say that. And then like the day keeps getting worse and worse. And you're just like, can this day get any worse? And then you drive to the store and get in a car accident. And it's your fault. It's like, how bad? That's an inconvenient thing. That's how I feel Donald Trump's indictment is coming in at this bad time. It's kind of like throwing an interception. It's like, oh man, that was bad timing. We need prayer in a time of chaos. I'm gonna say that. That's my thesis for this whole show, is that we need prayer in a time of chaos. Matthew 11:28 says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Doesn't that sound great? I want to go to Jesus. I know you want to go to Jesus and get rest, get peace that he says. Isaiah 26 verse 3, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you. Why? Because he trusts you. I love that. I love that. Matthew Henry once said that you may as soon find a living man who does not breathe as a Christian who does not pray. He's basically saying that you cannot find a man who was alive who doesn't breathe. At the same token, it's like saying you can't find a Christian who doesn't pray. I think that's what he's saying. It's very interesting. We need to pray. We need to pray for our enemies. If you don't like Donald Trump, if he's your enemy, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you who to vote for. I'm not here to advocate or whatever. The show, this special edition show is about prayer in a time of chaos. This is bringing chaos to our streets this weekend and for a long time, in the foreseeable future. So we need to pray. What else we need to pray about that's bringing chaos in our world right now? Inflation and rates. Goodness gracious. Have you been to Costco lately? 5 things will cost you $500. How much are 60 eggs at your Kroger store or Publix or Food for Less? How much? 60 eggs. Where I'm at, $25, yo. $25. Boom, ching, ching. Inflation has the Federal Reserve just had a meeting last week and they raised the rates, and they think by doing that it's going to tamper down inflation. And I think that the game is different this time. It's different. We never spend so much money as we have for these past 3 years. Have you noticed that? Trump signed a 2.2 trillion, and he signed another 3.3 trillion, and then all this Ukraine stuff is like a trillion, and then Biden did all this stuff for another 2.2 trillion, and then it's like that's like 18 almost 18 trillion dollars if you add it all up, and it's like that's a lot of moolah. 18 trillion dollars, that's like stacking the hundreds, and then at the end of the day it's going to be taller than the Empire State Building and enough to surround it. That's how much money we just spent and printed in the past 3 years. 4 years, if you want to add four. Yes, Trump and the Republicans printed money too. The Republicans are, the Democrats are just better at it, unfortunately. But they're both to blame. But yes, the rates went up, housing went up, electricity went up, the eggs and food, hotels, travel is a very honored. And what's going on with the dollar? I don't think anybody is actually paying attention to this, but all these bankers on all these mega banks that are actually collapsing doesn't really make an appealing argument for the dollar right now. Prayer in the time of chaos. We need prayer. So when I think about these things, if I didn't laugh, I would cry. And what makes me not cry is prayer, man. Prayer. We need to. This speaks to me. We lack humbleness in our day. There is a lot of non-humbleness going on around right now, and I'm the first one to step on this base and to take a swing at it. I am lacking humbleness in my life, and I see that affecting my walk. I see that affecting my relationship with my family, and I hope you could be introspective. And I know for your introverts out there, you guys are like, I'm I don't need to check myself for being humble. Like introverts don't do that. Anyways, everybody need to check themselves. We need humbleness. Pride parades. We have a pride parade in America. Pride month and pride. I get it. We get this notion of pride in every single institution in America because of our sin and because our lack of God in our society, and because we get our notions of society from Plato rather than the book of Proverbs, right? We need prayer in a time of chaos, not pride. Why you being a hater, man? They'll say, why are you hating on all these people? Why are you hating on the transgenders? Why are you hating on the idea of your guns being taken away? Why are you hating for paying more for eggs? You deserve, right? All these notions and arguments. I would say that I'm not being a hater. I would say I'm just observing the need for prayer because it's chaotic. It's chaotic right now. We need to pray for our churches. We need to pray for our churches in America, especially in America. There's too many churches right now that are Presbyterian or Baptist Reform or non-denominational that are either not awake or awoke or woke. Not awake, I would define as indifferent. How do you know you're not awake? You may be conservative, but you don't care. I would say you're not awake, man. You don't care. If you're awake, you would care. You would pay attention. You would read more often, read the news, and then pray. I would define churches who are not awake as having the symptoms of let's just stick to ourselves and ride out the wave. That's good that you guys are sticking to yourself and building community. That's great. But we need you in the front line right now. We need engagement. We need you to pray in a time of chaos, actually, and encourage your neighborhood to pray and encourage your grocer to pray and your barber and your banker. We need to, everybody, the church need to be engaging their communities. And I think one of the sneaky ways that our churches are not awake to everything I just said in this video is we're only here for a temporary time, and Jesus is the king of heaven and earth, and his kingdom is not of this earth, and we should not seek the things of earthly things, like paying your mortgage. That's an earthly thing. Do you want to pay $4,000 a month on your mortgage? Do you care? I use that as an example. Like, do you care that at all that all these things are taking place? Why not pray for them? Why not speak about them? Why not show a little bit more care and concern for Nashville, huh? Too many Christians who are conservative, goodwill people are too silent on what happened in Nashville, and that's scary. Too many churches as well in the United States are woke. They are on the wrong side of history here. They're advocating for the bad things. They're advocating for transgenderism. They're advocating for what R.C. Sproul says, a pluralism nation, a pluralistic society that allows the Christian to be okay with transgenderism. So much so that the ideology wants to swallow up the church forever. Yo, where you at in the front line? Where you at? We need to pray for those pastors, elders, and churches to wake up. What are your prayer requests? Let me end this. What are your prayer requests? I would love to pray for you. I'll come back in this video and check the comments and my email. Hit me up on Twitter at the Chicano Knox. Let me know what are you praying for so I could be aware of them. What's going on in your society? What's going on in your world? Tell me what's going on in your church. I'll pray for that. Because I want to know what you're praying for in the moment. I'm praying for everything I just said is what I'm praying for right now. Me and my family, because we care. We see the world in chaos. Now, that doesn't mean it's the worst we ever had it. Like I said at the very beginning, let me end it with this. There's been other times in history where the church has had it worse. This is not bad. You think this is bad? Yo, yes, the days are evil. Number your days. Be wise. Live today like it's your last to the glory of God. I get that. But we need to be concerned. We need to be active and aware. We need to be knowledge filled with these things. Not being alarmists, not being warmongers and super sensationalists and whatever. Conspiracy theorists off the yin yang. That's not what I mean. Keeping sober minded, your thoughts on Christ, resting to Christ. Remember the verses I shared in this video. Jesus says that I'll give you peace. Peace not like the world gives you, but the peace that I give you will stay with you, will be with you. We need peace in a time of chaos. We need prayer in a time of chaos. And I don't mean prayer like this arbitrary floating in the air, this invisible thing that exists outside of God. Prayer, the focus of that prayer is in the object of a person named Jesus Christ, who he himself, we should pray in the name of Jesus always. We should focus in our prayers, thinking about Jesus, his attributes, all that stuff. and look into Him for answers and for peace. So instead of panicking, giving into your temptations like drinking, smoking, wasting time, and doing sometimes what I do, not praying. Like this past 2 weeks, I confess to you, I haven't prayed enough. And I felt it today. And I was like, man, I need to come out there and confess my sin. I need to pray. I'm pretty sure you need to pray too. Do you admit that? Can you admit that? We all need to pray. So, what are you praying for at the moment? Let me know in the comment below. Don't forget to click that button below, subscribe, click that little bell to stay notified. Follow me on Facebook, on Twitter. I'm on Rumble, by the way. Go ahead and follow me on Rumble. And I sell t-shirts, so go ahead and go on T Public. I sell awesome t-shirts. I'm on Redbubble. Go ahead and support the ministry by buying some t-shirts. But anyways, I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up at the Chicano Knox on Twitter. And grace and peace, everybody. God bless you.